Jensen Huang, in his last week's interview with Lex Fridman, created a perfect clickbait by saying, AGI is here. I do not think that he did it on purpose, but Dr. Fridman's post-production team edited this to perfection. If you listen to what Mr. Huang actually said, you will hear exactly the opposite. He said, if you define AGI as a piece of software that automates the creation of some simple service and wraps it into a website that can charge your credit card, by that definition, the AGI is already here and arguably has been here for quite some time. But seriously, who in their right mind would define the AGI in that way? Dr. Fridman should know better. This podcast over the last several months has been working out a sensible definition of the AGI that is both accurate and comprehensible to the general public. The shortest version of it so far is the AI agent's capability to generalize from irrelevant experience. Here is where you can stop and move on with your life if you're not interested in a technical teardown and justification for this definition. At the very least, you already know that there is a robust way to define the AGI so that you no longer have to accept other people's mental laziness disguised under an excuse that some concepts are hard to define. The idea of generalizing from irrelevant experience captures the very essence of generalization. If you look at what the modern neural networks do, it is not generalization, it is summarization. Given a training set of data points scattered on a two-dimensional graph, the neural network tries to find a frugal way of summarizing them. A well-established method to do so is via a mathematical function, taking an x as an input and returning a y as an output. The simplest and mathematically the most well-understood way to find this function is to perform a linear regression that fits a straight line, minimizing the squared vertical distances from the points in the dataset to the regression line. This model needs only two parameters, the slope of the line and its intercept with the y-axis. If the model is less constrained with resources, it can become more fancy, and here the sky is the limit. The more parameters you can give the model, the more elaborate can the mathematical function and the line that it represents can become. But at the end of the day, the ultimate goal of this exercise is still to predict the y values for the values of x that are not in the training dataset. This problem then breaks down into two types of problem: interpolation and extrapolation. The problem is called interpolation when you are trying to predict the value of y for a previously unseen x that sits between two other x values that you have in your training set. The interpolation problem is fairly well understood because, in addition to the prediction that you're looking for, mathematicians have also devised clever ways to estimate the confidence the model has in its own prediction. Paradoxically, that confidence estimate becomes less and less reliable as the model is allowed to have more parameters for the same number of data points in the training set. This paradoxical phenomenon is called overfitting. Still, all this mathematical machinery works amazingly well for interpolation when the unknown x lies within the boundaries of the training dataset, also known as within distribution problem. During its training, the model summarizes its knowledge about the distribution in a single mathematical function encoded in a neural network, and then the true magic happens. The model can not only predict y for a previously unseen x, but also give you an estimate of how confident it thinks it is in that prediction. the things become progressively less rosy for an extrapolation problem when the x for which you are trying to predict y does not lie within the boundaries hugging the original training dataset. In other words, when you have an out-of-distribution problem. The mathematical summary of the training dataset becomes more and more irrelevant the further the new x you need the prediction for is from the closest x in the training dataset. Not only the model's predictions become wildly inaccurate, the model cannot even give you an estimate of how inaccurate it is. Now, the beauty of a generally intelligent agent is that it can generalize from irrelevant knowledge. A human encountering a previously unseen problem that is well outside of this person's training dataset is able to reason by analogy. The human brain can find a mental model that was trained on a completely different, irrelevant dataset, and it can apply complex reasoning to argue why this irrelevant model may, in fact, become relevant to the novel problem at hand, given certain conditions. And then, when an empirical attempt of applying this irrelevant model fails, the human brain is capable of engaging in a series of iterations of conjecture and refutation until an irrelevant model that works in this situation is found, which is the moment this model suddenly becomes relevant for any similar problem in the future. This is the line of mental work that is required for generalization that allows a generally intelligent agent like a human to solve an out-of-distribution problem. A modern LLM is usually a black box, and we cannot say for certain whether it can produce this line of reasoning, but the empirical studies so far have shown LLMs all but incapable of solving out-of-distribution problems, even when they demonstrate a superhuman capability of solving within-distribution problems. Building a website that will make you some money for a week or so is a within-distribution problem. Running NVIDIA, which as an organization needs to solve out-of-distribution problems lying on dozens of different dimensions, software algorithms, chip design and fabrication, memory and network bandwidth, power supply and cooling, each of them requiring previously unseen technologies to be invented, tested, and deployed on a daily basis. All of this is one incredible out-of-distribution problem. With all NVIDIA's amazing technologies at Mr. Huang's fingertips, he is still correct in his estimate that the odds of 100,000 AI agents putting him out of his job in the nearest future is 0.